because business is tough. Anybody that says it's not tough has not grown a business. Anybody that's like, oh man, this is chill, this is easy, then I know they haven't actually grown a business.
What's going on? Welcome to another episode of Smoove Conversations with your host, DJ D Smoove. And I also have a special guest with me today, guys. It is Jason Woodland.
Hey, what's going on? Good to see you, my man.
Man, likewise. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing magnificent. It's a beautiful day. We've got that rain, we got that, sunshine and all that, but now we got the sunshine. So what's up?
100%. I love it, man. Thank you so much for taking the time aside. I know I see you basically like twice a week.
Yep.
But why not 3 times, right?
Why not 3 times? That's what I'm saying. I love it.
I love it, man. Thank you again, man. For those who don't know you, we're going to jump into that, but I do know you. So I just want to say thank you so much. I know who you are. You have a busy schedule. And thank you for taking the time aside just to come down and have a great conversation for a little bit.
Absolutely. It's my sincere pleasure. Thanks for having me, my man.
Absolutely, brother. Well, cool. For those who don't know Jason Woodland, they might have heard the name, but they don't know who the person. Who is Jason Woodland?
Who is Jason Woodland? Well, besides what America's Most Wanted wants to say about me, just kidding. I don't even know if that show's around anymore. I am a man of integrity on a search for light and truth and understanding, and I'm all about building community and building business and friendships and travel and reading and drinking a lot of water, or as much as I can.
I love that. Speaking of water, we got some waters on the table.
That's right. Thank you.
Shout out to Sonny.
Are you sponsored?
Not yet.
All right, let's get some checks written over here.
Let's
go.
I know. Come on, Dasani. Well, that's cool, brother. For those who probably want to know, are you from Utah originally?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Born here, predominantly raised here. I've lived all over the place. I don't know. Probably, I think I lived in 15 different places by the time I hit high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Let's jump into that.
Yeah, let's jump in. What questions you got?
Okay, cool. So first of all, I want to start off. People know you as a business coach. People know you for you specializing in life insurance as well as disability insurance. But I feel like people don't know the whole Jason Woodland.
Not even close.
Not even close. And I'm still probably not even 50% of the way. But man, you come from a graffiti background.
Yeah.
I don't think many people know that at all.
Can
you touch on that a little bit? What got you into graffiti? And how did that shape who you are today?
Yeah, it's had a phenomenally huge impact on me. Back in the 80s, mid 80s, like 84, 85, I lived in a place down on Highland Drive, and they had this big basketball court out there, and b-boys and b-girls would go out there and just start breaking. That's like break dancers, just for the people that are not familiar with the terminology of b-boy, b-girls. They'd have the big giant ghetto blasters out there, and we'd just be rocking old Africa Bambaataa and a lot of that kind of stuff from back in the day. And that stuff inspired me immediately. I just resonated with the entirety of that concept. And so I got involved in b-boying, around that time. I'd say I got to just under intermediate. I was never pro by any stretch. Like, shout out to my people over at the Hurk, 15, 20 yards. Josh over there is my man. I was carrying around cardboard with me all over the place and breaking. And then I sort of graduated a little bit from that, got involved in skateboarding, but was still like in the thick of like hip hop culture. Listened to a lot of hip hop back then. Was raised on Eric B. and Rakim, Public Enemy, KRS-One, Gang Starr, these things. And then it was about probably 1989 is, I was around that culture quite a bit, and it was probably around 1989 that I first painted something. I would actually, rather, say I was a graffiti writer, and so, and then it was like the early 90s. I moved from, like I said, I lived all over the place, but at that point moved back into a new neighborhood. And I was in the thick of this concept. I'm like, man, I've got to reach out to some of the old cats that I grew up with in the old neighborhood. And lo and behold, they were all sort of like taking a look at this thing too. So shout out to my man Chew, Igloo, some of the homies from the old neighborhood that I've known since like elementary school and junior high. Like we're still down, so it's pretty cool. But the way that's shaped me, I mean, it gave me a huge sense of community. Because what I found in those spaces, and I know I can speak for myself, coming from, the broken home concept and, some sort of discombobulation in the structure of growing up, I found myself in very deep community, friendship, brotherhood, these things, and we all coalesced around sort of shouting at the world through our art, so to speak,
Right.
and just trying to get some of the stresses off our chest, I guess. So I think that's probably the easiest and quickest way I could maybe explain it.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's actually a great answer. I want to touch back on it just a little bit more. As far as like your first piece, tell us about it. What was it? What was the feeling going through it? The feeling after it? Like, what was that moment like?
Yeah, that's a great question because I'm not even sure if I've got the exact answer for the first piece. Back in the day, it was sort of a rough and rugged space to be. I grew up around a lot of extremely intense characters. Shout out to a dear friend of mine, Sledge One. He was from AOD crew, and there was a lot of intensity. There was a lot of craziness that was going on, but we were spending our time in alleyways, whether it be in Salt Lake City, Los Angeles, Seattle, Las Vegas, just bouncing and just doing all kinds of wild stuff. And it was definitely in an alleyway somewhere, but I don't remember. But I always know that, like, anytime back in the day, taking part in that subculture, it's not so sub anymore. It's very interesting. It's a lot more mainstream, which is really bizarre to me. But it was the sub of subcultures back then, and it was always invigorating. You always learned a lot about yourself. You learned a lot about your sort of philosophy with art, and how people received your art, because some would receive positively, some very negatively, of course. And that was the emotional drive that you had to really sort of build and go through at that point. But I often joke that even though I've got one of my degrees is in marketing, I actually give credit to the graffiti space for a lot of my marketing prowess, in terms of being able to be ultra abstract and think like not just think out of the box, but like tear the box to complete pieces and then sort of go from there.
Right.
And not even build the box back up, but just to do something completely different and abstract.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So you have not only one degree, you have multiple degrees. How did the transition go from, street kid, you're out and about in the alleyways doing your thing, you're in school, you have to be doing school well enough to obviously pursue it at the next level. What was that transition like?
Yeah, the transition was bless my mom. She passed away in '98 from complications from alcoholism. She was a very severe alcoholic when I was a young boy, and it was my mom and my sister and I. We were technically sort of like the Three Musketeers. My parents divorced when we were really young, and it got severe enough in elementary school. Where I was getting in trouble. I was going to youth services. I'd spent multiple times in youth services, and it got intense enough where I knew where the edge of the cliff was, and I knew that if I kept moving in that direction, things were going to get really complicated,
Right.
so to speak. And so I called my grandparents, of which we'd always kept a secret from them about my mom drinking. And code of the streets was never rat on anybody. That was, but I had to do that at that given time, because if I didn't, they said if we didn't get her into the hospital that day, she was going to die that pretty much that day or within that couple of day time frame. Well, when we took her into an in-house AA program, she lived there for 6 months. Like, she was out of the house, everything.
Right.
So my sister and I, we were sent to live with my grandparents. And my grandpa, my mom's father, Dean, was a strictly business kind of character, like strictly business. In fact, my mom told me that he was the very first person that she heard say, "I love you" back, because I'm unafraid when it comes to the word love, because
Right.
I've just seen too much sort of death and destruction throughout my life, and so I know that things can come undone quick.
Yes.
So I'm not afraid. And so anyway, we were sent to live with them, and my grandfather would have me reading college level books every single night. So we'd go to elementary school, we'd come home, I had to read the dictionary, I had to memorize 3 words every single day, 7 days a week, and their exact meanings, and then do my homework, and then I'd have to start reading, like I said, college level books, and I'd say, well, this is way too much for me. He said, well, that's why you read the dictionary. So if you have any problems with the words you don't understand, you jump into the dictionary and you get to understand. And so it taught me like deep self-reliance, both of course growing up the way I did, but then my grandfather, saying, hey, if you don't have the answer, you need to seek for the answer.
Right.
You need to seek the mentor, you need to read the book, you need to get the degree, you need to do all the things. And so I actually, even though I was a wild kid in school, I'm sure all the teachers were like, oh my gosh, get this kid out of here.
Right.
But I always did my homework and I always showed up. Like, I think, I can definitely count on one hand how many days in high school that I missed. It was a show to me. It was great.
Yeah.
Like, I loved it. I loved growing up with all the kids and the skaters and the punk rockers and the hardcore kids and the straight edge kids and everybody, jocks. I mean, I got along with everybody. I just said, what's up? Made friends with everybody because I just love humans. So anyway, but I think that's really sort of a long answer to it. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate that. What did you get your degree in by chance?
So I've got 2 bachelor's degrees, one in business management and one in marketing. And then I've got a certificate in international marketing. And then I've got a certificate in cybersecurity for critical urban infrastructure. And then I take in between 3 and 5 classes every single month, still to this day.
Yeah.
Always.
I love that. Always learning.
Always.
I love that.
Yeah.
Out of all of those degrees that you have, do you have a particular topic that you favor more than the other? Like, what topic interests Jason Woodland the most?
Yeah, a lot of subjects interest me very, very deeply. Like at 5:15 this morning, I was reading about free radical damage in cells and atoms and neutrons and so forth. So I do a lot of deep dive in, you name it. I try to read in between 10 and 15 articles every single day as well. So I'm reading everything from business, finance, international economics, science, history. It's all over the board. It really just depends on the day. But in school, I'd probably say my favorite class in college was global finance.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a cool class. Global finance, you said?
Global finance, yeah.
That.
It was ultra intense. And it was so intense that the final was a 30-page paper presentation and a 100-question test. And that test was so intimidating that I think it was on question number 4. I literally just thought, I don't even know this answer by any stretch of the imagination. So I literally raised my hand, and everybody in the class is sort of like looking over me like, what's raising his hand in this serious test? The instructor was a very strict kind of character.
Yeah.
The glasses at the end of his nose kind of guy. And he said, yes, Mr. Woodland. And I said, yeah, I just need the answer to number 4, please. And everybody looked at me like I was totally crazy.
Right.
Which is, pretty normal. And I embrace that from here to heaven. It's all good. And so the guy looked at me and he just thought, man, this is bold. He's just asking for the answer.
Right.
And so he looks around the class and he asks one of my colleagues to say, hey, so-and-so, what did you get for number 4? And everybody's looking around like, what the heck is happening right now?
Right.
And the person's like, C? And he said, wrong. all of a sudden, like half the class starts erasing their paper. And he's like, the answer is B. And everybody's like correcting their own paper, like, and they're like looking at me, like giving me a thumbs up, like, what the heck just happened?
Yeah, like do that again.
Seriously. And then about 10 minutes later, just silence. All of a sudden, the instructor looks at another student. So-and-so, what did you get for number 15? Everybody looks up again. It was hilarious. But anyway, yeah, global finance.
I love that. Those two answers could have been the make or break for that test. So
Seriously.
Shout out to the teacher there. That's awesome.
For real.
Now, I want to transition a little bit more to like when you got into coaching. You know, obviously people know you as a business coach. I'm one of your students and clients. And I've been grateful, man, the past 2 years. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But what got you initially into business coaching?
So I've been in either business ownership or professional sales, technically my entire life, outside of a stint at Hardee's back in the 90s where I was making biscuits. And don't even ask me about that because that's wild. But I made biscuits like a champion. But anyway, from there on, I've been in business ownership or sales like my entire life. And, you know, I've been blessed to have some phenomenal mentors and coaches in my life. And I love to share. I love to teach. And I've also been lucky to have some dramatically wild and diverse experiences, not only in the traditional world of, you know, college and all that kind of stuff, but learning and spending time on the streets and doing, you know, things where I'm garnering a lot of really interesting experiences that I can bring to teaching and coaching. And so technically I've been sort of in this sort of mindset almost my entire life. But back in 2008, I was going to go to work for a company called United Bank of Switzerland, which is at that time they were the second biggest Swiss bank. And the day that I got hired, after complete insane, I mean, I'm talking one of the most insane interview processes I've ever seen in my entire life by a long shot. They had a hiring freeze because everything started melting down in the economy.
Right.
And then I actually went to work for a business finance and consulting firm. And they were a startup. They were only around for a year. And mind you, this is in 2008 when the entire world's melting down.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, let's go. You know, I said, let's go, all chips in. Let's do this. And, you know, Kate, my unbelievable and magnificent wife, and she was like, yeah, you know, we weren't married at that time, but she's like a hardcore supporter, my biggest cheerleader.
Shout out Kate.
Shout out Kate, big time, like big time. And yeah, so I went over there and ended up being, I look at my career and I've made a lot of really good moves, thankfully. That was definitely one of them. That had a dramatically huge impact on the further trajectory of my life, both in creating friendships. The knowledge was insane. It was, you know, I mean, I was pretty much like trained for a day and a half, and they're like, we got to hit the ground running, so let's go.
Right.
And so I would walk in anytime I'd go into the boss's offices. I would just look at their desk and see what books were in the closest vicinity, and I would immediately drive to Barnes & Noble directly after work, buy the book, go home, and devour that book as quickly as I could possibly devour it. And so I wanted to bring myself up to speed. So I was almost like turning myself into a like if you were to listen to something, you can sort of make it go faster.
Yeah.
I was training myself to become a speed reader, and I've thankfully always had a really high level of retention of information, so I can recall information very, very easily. And so that's what I would do. And so over that 7 years, I worked with that finance and consulting, worked for a law firm. Shout out to all the people in those places, because I'm still friends with most of them today, and they've taught me a ton, and got to work with thousands and thousands and thousands of businesses over that period of time. And it was just such a fun and turbulent, very busy, wild experience. And from there, you know, I mean, of course, I've done sort of coaching on the side, helping people out, consulting, doing all kinds of projects throughout the years. And yeah, that's sort of the background of it. And so, you know, I've do a ton of it. I'm very grateful. I coach people in 4 different states currently: Washington State, California, Nevada, and Utah. And I shout out to all my clients. You being one of them, my man. I appreciate you. It's a sincere pleasure working with everybody.
I appreciate that. Thank you. What kind of clients do you coach? Like, when you're doing business coaching, who is Jason Woodland coaching?
Yeah. So really the way I choose on that, I first of all, the relationship's got to jive. I've got to know that, hey, I'm going to be spending a lot of time with my clients, and I want to make sure that at no point am I looking at my calendar saying, dang, that's where I'm freaking blessed, because I look at my calendar and I'm like, yes, like every single one. I'm like so amped, so excited to see everybody. And so really it boils down to, first of all, are we going to work well together? And I can pretty much get along with almost everybody.
Yeah.
But it's important there. The second piece is the person coachable? Are they teachable? Are they open-minded to collaborate and share different ideas? And then of course the next piece is what they need something I can deliver upon? Because if it's not, I'll tell them. I'm not going to take someone's money and just be like, hope that I can help move the dial.
Right.
You know what I mean? But my client ranges all the way from startup to all the way up to about 10 million in gross revenue currently. And the things that I'm coaching on are vast. Every single client's in a different kind of situation. Some clients I'm doing a lot more managerial. Some I'm doing a lot more sales tactics, sales psychology, process and so forth. Some it's a deep dive on personal branding and marketing and getting that person out there or their brand in general. Processes, procedures, standard operating procedures. I've poured over, I don't even know, probably 500 different employee handbooks just to help my clients sort of cross the T's and dot the I's, all the way down to sort of mediation with bosses and employees. I've coached through mergers and acquisitions. I've done a lot of succession planning where I'm working with the attorneys and CPAs and so forth on multi-million-dollar businesses sort of moving out of the market. So, I mean, name it, I've probably worked with it, or I'm currently working with it. I'm very, very lucky to have this opportunity.
Man, that's awesome, man. I love that. I want to talk a little bit about our experience being, coach, coach and mentee. First of all, thank you. I'm glad that we met. I think we met a little over 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, it was one of those situations where it's like you said there, did the connection hit first? And it did. Everything felt natural from just a random conversation that we had out and about in the warehouse. And
shout out to CJ.
Shout out to CJ. That was CJ's warehouse. And yeah, here we are today, man. It's just really cool to be able to like look back and say, okay, I was here. I was looking to get here. You came in that path and you are helping me get to exactly where I want to be and more.
Cool.
So Jason is the man. And I'll even throw these out there because I don't care. I think it's important to know, for people to know, the shortcut to life. And that's having a business coach. Last year, my business more than doubled. And this is the DJ business that I'm talking about.
Awesome.
So yeah, back in 2023, I think I had a gross of about $14,000, and we more than doubled that in 2024.
That's my man.
Let's go.
I love it.
And 2025 is only getting better,
Yeah.
So I appreciate you again, just crossing my path, helping me get to know what it's like to have a business coach, but also helping me maneuver through life in the way that entrepreneurs should. And that's exactly probably what I want to talk about next. Like, what do you think most people who are trying to become entrepreneurs lack the most?
Yeah, I think clarity for what exactly they're trying to aim for. And then I think that them also lacking the ability to sell their product or service. I think all too often, first of all, too many entrepreneurs have the shiny object syndrome. They're just sort of like, oh yeah, let's add this product, let's add this service, let's add this product. And once this product is added, everybody's going to care. Well, I mean, the catch is that most people don't care about what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's just the brass tacks of it. You've got to market, and you've got to first show that you care before anybody's going to care about what you're doing.
Right.
I often joke that business ownership and entrepreneurship is not the movie Field of Dreams. Just because you build it doesn't mean they're going to come. Now, some things, if you build it, they're going to come. Like our homie Jeff, he's got the mad, craziest ice cream, the freshest ice cream under the sun.
That's right.
Like when he builds it, people want ice cream, so they're coming, right?
Yes, for sure, 100%. Shout out Jeff, man.
But what it boils down to is the lack of clarity in their vision, what their ultimate goal in their process is, and then being either not having a sales process or just being completely afraid to actually sell their product or service. There's a lot of fantastic products and services out there, and there's a sales funnel breakdown. And so I see that a lot with many businesses, not only startup, but even multi-million-dollar businesses that could easily scale up their sales if they understood the process of selling, and then also understood exactly how to talk to the people that care about what they're trying to do. Instead of just trying to fit a square peg into a round hole concept, you know what I mean? Like being able to, first of all, talk to the person who may be willing and able and have an interest in that product or service, and then helping them understand why you're the best place to get that product or service. So I think that's going to be a major piece of it. And then even though I'm like a extreme optimist, I've also had my throat slit on a handful of occasions in business. And so I play the realism role as well. So I understand where too much optimism can also create issues.
Right.
So over leveraging in a situation that you shouldn't be over leveraging. There's so many different facets and scenarios to it, but that's definitely what I see quite a bit out there.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna jump back into the entrepreneur because there's a bunch of them out there, and I know they're listening. Let's jump into life insurance real quick. Why don't a lot of people get life insurance?
First of all, I think that it's not fun or sexy to talk about. I mean, that's number one, because you've got to be talking about what happens if you're dead.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I've been really lucky to be able to build a business in the life insurance and disability insurance space that is more on the advanced planning. I, of course, help a lot of people with your simple term policies and that kind of stuff. But on the advanced planning side, especially for business owners, a lot of business owners are actually unfamiliar with how it can actually be used to protect them. So like, for instance, buy-sell agreements. Let's say there's a partnership. If let's say it's an equal 50-50 partnership and one of those partners in that business dies, technically all the shares of that business immediately default to the heirs of that deceased business owner, which means the business owner that is still alive now has a new business partner. Now, they may not want that business partner, and the business partner may not want to be part of the business.
Right.
But without, first of all, having a buy-sell agreement written by a competent business attorney that understands that, and then funding it with life insurance to be able to buy the shares back into the company, there's those types of things that I spend a lot of time in that a lot of people are actually unfamiliar with how it works and why you should even be paying attention to it. But of course, I'm biased. I've got a life insurance and disability. Just get it.
Right.
Whether you're a business owner, you're an individual, you're a young family, yeah.
Okay. And I want to thank you for that.
Yep.
That was if y'all didn't hear that, he just gave a power play to you guys. Call him for more details.
Yeah, and that's just one of the major things that can become a problem for a business owner if you don't have it all the T's crossed, I's dotted. Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. Now, speaking to the individual though, not a lot of people still jump into the life insurance game, and I think it's highly important. I always heard you tell me, and other high-level entrepreneurs tell me, get life insurance. Why? Tell me why for the individual at home right now.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of reasons why. First of all, if you pass away and you have any kind of debt, life insurance can take care of that. It can take care of covering a mortgage that's outstanding, credit card bills, student loans, car car payments. You can also, and this is something that I think a lot of people miss, let's say you've got a favorite nonprofit organization. You can actually leave life insurance benefit to your favorite nonprofit, which is a huge legacy impact. And so that's a big piece. Of course, if you've got a young family, if someone passes away, the other person has got to foot the bill for all the things. So, I mean, first of all, you're going to have potential medical expenses. You're also going to have funeral expenses. The average funeral in America right now, I think, is $8,500 to $12,000. In my will, I've got $50,000 dedicated because I'm going to have DJs, I'm going to have spaghetti dinner and break dancers, and I'm not even kidding, actually. So, yeah. So, I mean, you've got to be, planning out, because GoFundMe is not a strategy, and it's definitely not life insurance.
I like that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Dang, that's good. Speaking of spaghetti and pizza,
Oh yeah,
you're a pizza guy.
oh yeah, without a doubt.
What's up with that, man? Why you like pizza so much?
That's hilarious. I don't think I've ever had anybody ask me why I like pizza so much. I think because honestly, it ties back to my youth. Of course, pizza is just good, period, right? I mean, it's just good.
Yeah.
But elementary school, when things were really disconnected, with my mom, bless her heart again, there was times that there was no food in the house, and there might not be food in the house for, a few days or so. And so we would cruise over to Peter Piper Pizza down on Redwood Road, and we would get some pizza. So, sometimes we'd fold boxes and, whatever we could do to eat, So, I mean, there was some times that were rough around the edges, the whole nine. And so we would connect that. And so it was sort of like a staple. It was like, I mean, definitely a staple in my young life.
Yeah.
And so, of course, and it's just good. So I just sort of hung on to pizza. And so I've had pizza from Hong Kong to New York, from Los Angeles to London, and all over the place. Like it's my thing for sure.
Yeah, I love that. You got a favorite style of pizza that's your go-to?
Yeah, New York style is my joint for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I love all, pretty much all the stuff. I can't really wrap my head around Detroit.
Detroit style.
Yeah,
pizza.
I mean, respect to the people that are rocking Detroit out there. But it's, it's really bready and thick.
Okay.
I love just like an old school New York style, and I love, being in New York when they're just like screaming at you to hurry through the line, just like, come on, let's go.
Yeah,
I love it.
Dude, let's go.
Yeah.
You fold your pizza in half and take a bite?
I actually don't.
Come on, man.
Well, because then the view of the slice disappears.
But the view is there when it's on your plate, when it's first served to you. That's the opportunity. Once you take that first bite, it's over with.
Dude, that is awesome.
Man, I want to talk about Rainmakers.
Yeah.
So you have an organization. It's a networking organization, and it goes by the name Rainmakers. Can you tell us a little bit about it and what it is?
Yeah, Rainmakers is a consortium of high-level, high-performing business owners and executives. We've been meeting for 7+ years. It started out actually as a different organization that was based out of Texas, and they were trying to make a big run, up here in the mountain states, and they were doing a pretty good job building it out. And they ended up having, I don't know, probably 12 or 13 different chapters and so forth. And there was a couple of things that had discombobulated with their organization or leadership or something, and it just collapsed and went away. Mm-hmm. And shout out to my man Kevin Slater. He and I were actually the very first ones that were in that original group, and then we brought in Justin Pratt, estate planning and criminal attorney. Definitely check with him if you need one of those. And then we also had Gary Michaud, we had Mark Holland, we had Becky Holland. There's a few of us left, mm-hmm. And hopefully I'm not forgetting any of the OGs there. But anyway, I thought to myself, I'm like, man, because we were the last chapter standing, and we were down to like 6 people or something. I'm like, hey, you know what? I propose we break off. We create our own name, our own rules, our own dues, our own everything.
Right.
And I called Kevin, I called Justin, and I said, hey, here's my proposition. What do you guys think? And they're like, yeah, that sounds great. So at the next our next meeting, I made the proposal, and I said, what about we call this thing the Rainmakers, because we're out here making it rain. You know what I mean?
That.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
everybody's on board. We got the unanimous vote, and from there on, we started rocking it. The thing that's different about us, we meet every single week,
Right.
and have done like religiously for years. We're not part of any other organization. There's no other consortium. Like, it's still us. We make the rules. We do all the things. And the thing is, we're not trying to build it. That's the thing that's wild. It's every time someone says, "Oh, are you trying to fill a seat, or what seats you trying to fill?" My answer is none.
Right.
Because we build for culture first, and then a very, very tight second. You have to be top level of what you do for your business, because we want to make sure that if there's any referrals given, et cetera, that the person knows very confidently business is going to be taken care of.
For sure.
But most importantly, like I said, is culture. We are deep friends over there. Like, we spend a ton of time with each other outside of work. We're going to plays, we're going to concerts, we're going to dinner. We're all doing these things, just to be there in support of each other. And that's the big thing that I think makes this organization different.
I love that.
Yeah.
For the entrepreneur, going back into the entrepreneur side, listening to this right now, we just talked about networking. We talked about a networking group. How important is networking when you're building a business?
In my personal opinion, it's one of the most important things you can do. You actually, I think, asked me this in one of our sessions recently about when I sort of got involved in the concept. And it's funny because, like, the way I grew up, around graffiti crews and being adjacent to even gangs and that kind of stuff. I never joined a gang, but knew a lot of people that were deeply affiliated. That it was the familial aspect of it, and the so-called, like, sort of brotherhood that I sort of grew up with, because parts of my family that I was really close with weren't in Utah, and some parts were sort of dispersed. And then, my mom sort of dealt with her thing for a period of time. And again, I'm not throwing my mom under the bus for the path that she ended up taking. She just, had to deal with this thing.
Yeah,
but
understood.
yeah. But I was always so deep about the concept of community and building friendships and having relationships all over the place. And so when it came to business, it came dramatically natural for me, because when I bring you in my circle, you're my family. You know what I mean?
Right.
And not in the that Italian restaurant when they say you're here, you're family.
Yeah.
No, in like a deep sense. Like,
right.
Once you've entered into my sphere, you're my family.
For sure.
And so I sort of see that in all aspects across the board. So that's sort of like to slightly answer that. But yeah, it's dramatically important, because it's the thing that I think people mix up too, is that networking is not about getting business. It's about being of service to others. It's about helping your community. It's about trying to help someone move to that next level.
Right.
If something comes of it from you, cool. And if it doesn't, cool.
Right.
Because the thing that you gained out of that was a friendship. And that's how I look at networking, full stop. Like, I look at it as you're building relationships, you're building community, you're helping build everything that the infrastructure of this world should be made of.
Yeah.
Because if we don't have community, things break down on a real level. And so I look at it a lot deeper, I think, than your normal person that just gets involved in networking. So there's like, oh, I need to build my business. I need to know a bunch of people, so hopefully they can refer me business. And I look at it as the social fabric and framework of not only our neighborhoods, but our cities, our states, our country, and the world. We need to come together. We need to be building deeper and stronger communities. We need to be listening to one another. We need to be helping one another. So so my concept of networking is, I think it's a much more global mindset than I think just like, hey, let's network to get business.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. To touch on that, actually, man, that was phenomenal. I remember when I first learned about networking through you. I thought I had an idea, and I think you hit it where it was like you show up in this room, you pass out a bunch of business cards, and you hope somebody call you. Well, I turned out that was very the ROI on that was not high at all, and that's meaning my return on investment, passing out business cards. And I did understand once I was working with you that you do want to show up. Yes, show up for others, but do not expect anything else in return other than you just showing up for that individual. It's important to introduce yourself. I know when we first met, I was very more so introverted, and I was a little bit on the shy side, and put myself out there. But I feel like, just the routines that we were going through, the things that you were teaching me, it helped me get out of my shell, my comfort zone, where I would go up to an individual and say, "Hey, how's it going? My name is Deshaun White." And that took practice. It took, courage and all of those things. But yeah, today I have more friends than I ever had in my life. And it's because I am understanding what networking truly means. And the people that I'm networking with, they also understand the game as well. And I just want to say shout out to all my friends out there. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. And I think that the thing that I think makes me a little bit different too is that I hold on to people. Like I said, once they're in my circle, like you're in my circle.
Right.
So I mean, I'm in conversation with people I've known since like 7th grade, 5th grade, 4th grade. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like still, and I still have deep ties in all these various organizations that I've grown up in because it's still a part of my heart. It still beats. It's still part of my bloodstream. Whether it be like the hip hop scenes and the graffiti writers, the hardcore kids, the straight edge kids, the punk rock community, business community, the philanthropists, the millionaires and billionaires, like everybody. It doesn't even matter. Like, if you're a good person and I see you wanting to do good for society and do good for your community, you're part of my family. You're part of my community. And so I will hold on to that, and I will try to help whoever that is in those communities, like do the things that they need to do to better their areas. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
And so shout out to all of my various communities. I've got deep love and respect for all of them. I still hold all of those things very, dear and close to my heart. I still live all those philosophies, and I love being the professional, business professional, or did I say that twice? Anyway.
No, it's okay.
That's all good.
You
The
did.
professional business professional. Well, what's up? But I love being able to, be anywhere from like, a punk rock show on a Friday night to a fundraising gala Saturday night to chilling in the park on Sunday. Kate and I, we live a very eclectic life, and it makes things way fun. So, if you follow me on IG, you might be like, what is going on with this dude? Like, he was at this thing, and all of a sudden he's like at this dramatically different kind of scenario.
Oh, yeah.
And it just, so I get a lot of questions about that. So that's sort of an answer to that. So yeah, by the way, hit me up on IG, Jason Woodland, and the number 1.
Number 1, baby. That's cool, man. I want to talk about a unique experience that you shared. Actually, I got 2 of them. But first, let's start with out of the country. You lived in Japan, if I'm not mistaken. Hong Kong, my apologies. Yep. Hong Kong. What were you doing out there, and how long were you out there for?
Yeah, so this was 1999. Our brother Tony Reese.
Shout out Tony.
Shout out Tony. This guy's a phenomenal realtor. Love that guy. So he gave me a call. So I actually sold him his cell phone back in the 90s. In fact, his cell phone number today, I sold to him back then.
He still got the same number?
Same number.
That's wow.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's so dope. So yeah, and then he called me and was like, oh, hey, I've got an opportunity I want to share with you. Now, if you're in Utah, you know what that kind of phone call means. It means you're about to get pitched on an MLM, right?
Yeah.
Well, at that time I was I was 22 years old, had already bought my first townhouse, and I was working I was working two jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So I was working 7 days a week. I was a plumber, and I was also evening store manager for a high-end clothing store.
Awesome.
And so, of course, when he said, "Hey, I got an opportunity," I'm like, "Cool, let's check it out." Because I'm like all about checking things out. So, anyway, the company was USANA, and I'm like, yeah, sure, let's. He had me get on the phone with Brian Tracy, and I had actually met Brian Tracy. For those of you who don't know, he's a big motivational speaker, and he's written a bunch of books. Learned a ton from him, but so I got on the phone, listened to Brian, and I'm like, yeah. If Brian's name's attached to this thing, let's go.
Right.
And also Dennis Waitley, who I had also met, Dr. Dennis Waitley. He wrote a book, The Psychology of Winning. Anyway, I met those two gents, and after being on the phone, I'm like, yeah, let's sign up. Anyway, did a pretty good job right out of the gates. Signed up a bunch of people, sold a lot of vitamins. I still think their vitamins great, so cool organization. MLM is definitely not for me anymore, but for those that want to take that path, much respect, it's cool. But after a little while, one of the Diamond directors was like, "Hey, you're hustling, so do you want to help us launch Hong Kong?" And of course, I'm 22. I feel like I've got all the answers in the world. I'm like, "Of course I do. I'll crush it."
Right.
Like let's crush Hong Kong. Oh boy, that was definitely one of the most humbling experiences of my life. So a 22-year-old kid, thinking he's got the world figured out in business already, land in Hong Kong. Immediately start taking classes every single morning on how to do business in the Far East, and start trying to take some Cantonese lessons, learn how to count, and sort of get by. But a large percentage of the island speaks English, and they're wanting to speak English while you're trying to speak Cantonese, because that's the predominant language spoken on the island. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, got by decently. Doing business out there is diametrically different than doing business here in the States. Yeah. Things here move dramatically faster. There it slows way down. So, got to learn a lot there. And then I enrolled in City University of Hong Kong. And that's where I got my certificate in international marketing, because I'm like, hey, I need to learn on a much deeper scale. Right. And so, yeah, but shout out to my friend Alan Wong. He was the number one Rolls-Royce and Bentley dealer in the world at the time, and got to learn from some unbelievable friends. Business, I mean, it was wild. Yeah, and we were out there for a handful of months. Yeah. And then bounced back. But I had my 23rd birthday out there on the South China Sea with a couple of my local friends out there.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was wild for sure.
Spending my birthday in Hong Kong. That's cool, bro.
Yeah, it was wild. Yep.
That's cool.
And then about a month later, Tony and our dear friend Maze came out. Rest in peace to Maze. And they took me out for my birthday dinner out at Planet Hollywood.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was one out there too?
Huh?
There's a Planet Hollywood.
There was.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it's there anymore. Probably not. But yeah, there was a Planet Hollywood out there. So we went out there for dinner and just had a fun time.
That's cool. I like that. I like that. Well, cool. Appreciate you sharing that experience there. Yeah. Another experience I want to talk about. You're actually a fan of Sundance. I know we got some recent news about that's turning some frowns. So smiles upside down. With Sundance moving to Boulder, Colorado. But yeah, you had this awesome experience when you attended, I don't know how many years back, but you saw Ice-T there, and you had the opportunity to actually shake his hand, along with his friends. Can you tell us a little bit about that story?
Yeah, so I can't remember exactly what year it was, but it was probably 12 or so years ago. And we knew that Ice-T, who I grew up on, Ice-T has definitely had a huge impact on my youth. And we knew that Ice-T was doing that big documentary, Something from Nothing, The Art of Rap. And getting tickets to big premieres in Sundance can be challenging, to say the least. Right. Nonetheless, we didn't get the tickets right out of the gates. So how it worked was, I was like, well, dang, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to even get in. My mother-in-law, Nancy, shout out to Nancy. She's got a heart of gold. She's like, hey, you know what? I live in Park City. How about if I just cruise over and I'll just stand in the overflow line? And I had a previous engagement downtown where I was having to wear a tuxedo. And so I'm in a tuxedo, And I'm just like looking down, off the side of my chair, looking to see if my text message blew up. And she said, I'll just stand in the overflow line to see if I can get tickets for the next overflow line. I mean, it was wild. So, I mean,
How many lines is it?
Dude, it was mainly 3. So there was like an overflow of the overflow.
Wow.
And then the main line. So you had to stand in line for this one overflow because the overflows were so wild.
Yeah.
There was so much demand to go and check it out. So anyway, she stands in the overflow line and she gets us tickets to stand in the official overflow line.
Okay.
And so I see that and I'm like, okay, we got to bounce.
Right.
So I cruise home, grab Kate, and we're cruising up the canyon. Of course, Murphy's Law, it's like the wildest snowstorm ever. It's like a whitewash. You can't even see like 15 feet in front of the car. Dang. Stressful as can be. I'm rocking a tuxedo. It's wild. So anyway, we get up there. We're standing in the overflow line, and we're standing in that overflow line. I think it was probably about 2 hours.
So tuxedo wet?
What was that?
Tuxedo's wet at this point.
Well, thankfully, I had like an overflow shirt.
Okay.
Or an overthrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I didn't look like, what the hell is this dude doing in a tuxedo coming up here to Sundance?
Yeah.
So I had this sweater I could throw over, but so we stand in the overflow line. We're up in there for a couple of hours, and then they start letting in the main line, and the main line is now in, and now they're starting to move into the overflow line, and I'm like, oh, I'm all optimistic, but I'm like, oh man, I'm just like jittered because now at this time we've dedicated like probably 6.5 hours of our day and Nancy's day standing in these lines. Mm-hmm. So anyway, they get down to it and they're like, okay, we can do 10 more people and that's it. Mm-hmm. And we made friends with this publicist out of Canada that did a lot of stuff for the hip hop community. And he was number 8, Kate was number 9, and I was number 10. We were the last 3 to be able to get in. We get in, the movie had already started. We can hear the bass just flowing through the theater. And I'm just like, we are here. Yes. I am so grateful. This is amazing. So anyway, after the show, and we knew Ice-T was going to be there for question and answer. So anyway, Ice-T comes out. He's like, hey, I'd like to answer some questions. And I brought a couple of friends with me. I brought Grandmaster Caz and I brought Chuck D. Now, for those of you who know who I'm talking about, you're talking about like deep legends in hip hop. And I was like, man, you got to be kidding me. This is unbelievable.
Right.
And so, there's all kinds of fun questions and everybody's really engaged. And, I was like, just in case I don't have a chance to say what's up to him, I threw my hand up and Ice-T was like, hey, what's up? And I said, hey, man, I just want to let you know that you guys, your lyrics help raise me. And, it's meant a ton. Of course, there's some rough lyrics in there too, don't get me wrong, but,
for sure.
But like Mind Over Matter on the OG record from Ice-T, you're talking about like next level kind of thinking,
Power.
Yeah, and exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. And so it had monstrous impacts in my youth. And so, and he's like, hey, much love, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And as everybody then starts to leave, Ice-T, he's got a major posse, so they roll him right out.
For sure.
But anyway, I cruise down, just to see if there's an opportunity to say what's up. And then Kate taps me on my shoulder, and the whole place is like cleared out. Mm-hmm. And Kate taps me on my shoulder, and she said, turn around. And I turn around, and literally from me to you is Chuck D. He's just standing there. And then Grandmaster Caz. Mm-hmm. So I got to say what's up to both of them, talk to them a little bit, and then Chuck D, and then Grandmaster Caz had to roll out, but Chuck D and I were able to grab a photo and just have some time together. It was fantastic. That's awesome. It meant the world. And so anyway, I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm feeling good. So we start taking off out of the venue, and it's slushy and snowy outside, as cold as can be. And Kate and I are sort of like, we were in this line, but the line is like thinned out. And all of a sudden I look over, and maybe 15 feet away, Ice-T's just standing there next to this SUV, and he's about to get in. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, Ice. And he doesn't just like look or nod or anything. He shuts the door back on the SUV, walks back over to me, and gives me a pound. And he says, thank you very much for your words. I really appreciate that.
Man, that's
and
awesome.
I'm like, man. So yeah, to have that opportunity to be able to spend a little bit of time with Ice-T, Grandmaster Caz, and Chuck D, that was a pivotal moment for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, man.
Yeah.
Jason, who's some of your biggest inspirations?
I've actually got quite a few. I would definitely say my mom is definitely one of the top notch. She was, she suffered for, like I said, a period of her life, but she was the best mom under the sun. When she was away from that stuff, she taught me algebra. She knew algebra like a queen. She taught me algebra. She also gave me my love for music. So I've got a pretty sizable record collection, but hers was bigger than mine.
Okay.
Yeah, so she had she's the one that introduced me to everything from the Doors and Led Zeppelin all the way to Marvin Gaye and Curtis Mayfield and everything in between. She'd keep me up on Saturday nights. She'd play records and she'd say, "Who is this?"
Wow.
She'd say, "Who is the singer? Why is this important?" She'd be teaching me, not just introducing me to music, but teaching me about the music. She gave me the Superfly soundtrack when I was in fourth grade. I know that's wild, but she taught me deeply. So and she was also a singer. She was also the spokeswoman for Fort Worth National Bank down in Texas. So she was on all their billboards. She was actually a child star.
Okay.
Yeah, she was in a movie. She had her own record. She had a 45 that she sang on, and it was played on the radio. I mean, it was big time stuff. And so my mom's definitely up there, like without a doubt. She was a powerhouse. My grandma and grandpa that took us in, they took us under their wings. They taught us. They gave us structure like I never knew before.
Right.
And they had me doing tough stuff like reading college level books at a young age, but showing us respect and taking us to places and giving us a love for the arts and plays and ballets and that kind of stuff. I was very blessed to have that huge juxtaposition from living that other stuff and then dressing up and going to a play. So I mean, all this really cool stuff. Guru from Gangstar.
Okay.
Shout out to Guru, bless his heart. He passed away a handful of years back, but he was definitely an inspiration. Had a chance to meet him on stage. And his lyrics definitely had phenomenal impact on me. And just I mean, I could go on and on about that. KRS-One.
Yeah.
Shout out Boogie Down Productions.
Let's go.
Yep. Monstrous impact. Hugely inspirational. Dude, I mean, I could really go on and on. There's a lot of major inspirations to me.
Okay.
My wife is an inspiration.
Yes.
She's a total badass, and she works her butt off like crazy, man. She's one of the hardest working people I know, and so she's wild inspiration to me. My little sister Ashley, shout out. My nieces Shaylee and Bree, like wild inspirations to me. I just love them to pieces, and we're more like just sort of like homies, sort of. I mean. He wasn't around a lot in my young life. Like I said, it was my mom, my sister, and I for the bulk of it. But, he was a drummer in a band and, did a lot of business with my grandpa. And they had just wild stuff. They had dinner with Frank Sinatra, just the three of them. The stories are wild, dude. It's endless. But I think that I could probably end there for a few. But I also want to shout out our homie Charles.
Shout out Charles.
Yeah, Charles Piggott. He's definitely an inspiration. He's strong in the recovery. He's been I think it's 7 years, and that kind of stuff I've got mad respect for. When you go down some of those paths and then you sort of break out and you move into a bigger, brighter space.
Yes.
And he's out there, helping people with their personal fitness and just rocking that kind of stuff. So, man, I could go on and on and on.
Man, I love it though. It's cool to know that you have many inspirations like that where you can go on and on and on. Keep touching Jason's life, y'all. That's awesome. I wanted to just ask, so for someone that's building a business or maybe that's newer into entrepreneurship, no matter what they're doing, what are three tips of advice that you can give them to build momentum in their business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd say the first one, stay open-minded and stay teachable, because there's a lot of things that can help you. I mean, of course, I'm biased. Having a business coach definitely is a positive thing. taking classes, reading books, never thinking that you're the king of the jungle.
Right.
Because there's always bigger, badder, faster, richer, smarter, crazier, wilder. There's always a bigger player that can eat your lunch. And so to keep that humbleness, stay confident for sure. Like be confident and walk like a giant. But always know that you can have your lunch eaten real quick. So I think that's an important one, to not be afraid to tell people about your business. And I think that's a major problem for a lot of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they're just like, oh, I just want people to call. They should know what I'm doing. But you got to be out there marketing. You got to be branding. You got to be networking. You got to be talking to people and reminding them what you do. I often say that Coca-Cola Corporation, they had their biggest advertising budget in history, and I think that was in 2023, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
2023. We're talking about Coca-Cola.
Right.
They're one of the most widely understood brands in not just American but world history. Everybody knows Coca-Cola.
Yes.
But they're still going all chips in on marketing and branding. So don't be afraid to tell people what's up.
That's huge.
It is. It's monstrous. And then I think that maybe the third thing is really understand who exactly your market is. Because there's a lot of times where people are marketing to a demographic that doesn't care about what your product or service is.
Right.
So understand who actually cares about what you're trying to sell, and then make sure that you're targeting that accordingly and appropriately, so you're not wasting dollars and time and spinning your wheels.
Yes.
Because business is tough. Anybody that says it's not tough has not grown a business. Anybody that's like, oh man, this is chill, this is easy, then I know they haven't actually grown a business. So it's tough. It's tough for everybody. It's dramatically rewarding if you can stick around long enough. But I mean, the SBA statistics tell us different. Most businesses get their lunch eaten. They get wiped off the map.
Yeah.
Because they're either improperly capitalized, they have got squirrely marketing, or they don't have a sales process, or they're afraid to tell people about their business, or they've got a product or service that is whack.
For sure.
I mean, there's a lot of startups out there that they create a solution for a problem that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Or a solution for a problem that might exist to like 0.00006% of the population. Now, if you've got a large enough ticket on the pricing, then yeah, maybe you can connect the dots on it. But other than that, the market is going to put a stomp down on you.
Yeah, for sure.
So having those understandings, I think, is imperative.
It makes sense. I appreciate that again. Thank you. I'm gonna get you out of here real soon. Thank you so much. Give me your top 5 artists of all time.
Oh man,
come on, you got
dude.
And I know you got a bag. I know you have a deep record collection, but I need only 5 people from you, Jason.
Oh man. Okay, James Brown is definitely on there.
Okay.
Madonna is definitely on there. Gangstar is definitely on there.
That's 3.
Yeah, that's 3. Dude, this is tough. Motley Crue is definitely on there.
Okay, that's 4. You got one more now.
Dude, I'm eclectic when it comes to music, my man.
Okay, I like that.
It's all over the board.
Last one.
Oh man, this is tough. Because dude, I love so much, like deeply. You know what I mean? Stellar Brass.
Wow, I love it.
Stellar Brass, and there's only 0.2% of the people on this that would be listening to this that know what I'm talking about. They were a local band, and yeah, they had a phenomenal impact on me in my youth. So
love it.
That's it.
That's Jason's top 5 right there. Well, Jason, I want to get you out of here soon, obviously. Is there anything that you want to promote to the people out there? Any events you got coming up? What should the people know that's coming up on Jason's radar?
Here's what's always on my radar. Spend more time listening to one another. Don't try to finish each other's sentences. Listen intently and listen deeply to your friends, your family, your colleagues. Do your best to understand. It's not about just trying to be understood. It's about trying to understand. That's always on my radar. I think deeply about that all the time. Get out there. Don't be afraid to talk to your community. Don't be afraid to talk to your neighbor. Don't be afraid to wave to people. I don't give a crap how awkward it feels or seems, and someone might not wave back. Forget about it. It doesn't matter. Be the person who is connecting. Be the person who is saying what's up. Be the person that if you see a neighbor in need, go and mow their lawn if that's the situation. But go out there and create communities, build communities, help one another, and show up. That's one of the biggest things that I think I could say is show up for your family, show up for your friends, show up for your community. If they've got a band that's playing, do your best to show up. If they've got an art show, do your best to show up. If they've got a product or service, your friends, buy it. Show up. Go to the local store. Say what's up. Introduce yourself. Don't just buy it. Say what's up. Introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Like build that community. Let them know. Throw them a review. Shout them out on social media. Like that's what's on my radar. That's the most important thing.
I love that. Say it with your chest, Jay.
Always.
Where can we find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Jason Woodland. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jason Woodland. You can find me on Instagram, Jason Woodland and the number 1. You can find me on Threads, and that's also Jason Woodland number 1. I'm on all social like that. So hit me up, say what's up. Let's build community. I spend a lot of time on Instagram, so throw me some DMs, say what's up. Let's meet up. Let's go grab some pizza.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know all the great pizza joints.
And tea joints.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, tea is
all
day.
Into it, man. You're great. Real quick, before I get you out of here, you had your own tea company there.
Yeah.
How many years did you have that for?
So see, my business partner and I, we had that, let's see, 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I think it was maybe 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah, we built that online. We had a wholesale segment. We were selling to restaurants, coffee shops, art galleries up in Park City and Deer Valley and everything. And then we opened an actual tea house. So yeah, it was probably 7 years overall. I think it is, yeah.
Awesome. You guys got to hear a story about the tea company there. It's phenomenal.
Thanks.
Jason, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time aside. This was a wonderful conversation, brother. Did you mention LinkedIn already?
Yeah, LinkedIn.
Okay.
Hit me up.
Yes. Hit up Jason Woodland. Thank you for coming by, man. We're going to go ahead and close this show. I want to say thank you again. Thank y'all for listening out there in the radio sphere, UtahMusicRadio.com. And we'll see you on the next episode, guys. Thank y'all so much. Much love. Peace.
Much love, y'all.